I'm William. I hope you're doing well. In this video, I'm going to be talking about How to Be Alone by Jonathan Franzen. It's a collection of essays, and it's the best book I've read all year. You probably saw the thumbnail. That might be why you clicked on the video. I typically don't read too many essay collections. I read a lot of novels, which you probably know if you keep up with the videos on this channel. Probably 3/4 of what I read is fiction. Jonathan Franzen is a favorite novelist of mine. Freedom is one of my favorite novels of all time. I've only reread it once, so total of 2 reads through, because I don't want to overdo it with that novel. It's one that makes me feel a lot more like myself and has been just so valuable to me that I can hardly put it into words. A couple of other novels of his I think are really great. The Corrections is definitely one. Crossroads is another. And I've enjoyed some of his earlier novels too, like 27th City. I've been saving this book for a while now. It's been on my radar. I figured I would probably like it. And little did I know, the first essay in this book, How to Be Alone, is about Jonathan Franzen's father's brain. It's called My Father's Brain. It's about his dad having Alzheimer's and the impact that had on his father's life, his life, and his family's life too. Right now, a loved one of mine, a family member who I love dearly, is going through the process of losing his memories. He has Alzheimer's. And so because of that, the first essay couldn't have hooked me any more powerfully. But the reason why this was such a powerful reading experience for me was not isolated just to that first essay. It's pretty incredible how relevant all of these essays are to today's times, given that they were all written 20, even 30 years ago. A lot of the essays talk about what it's like to be a reader and a writer in the digital age, and those themes have only become more relevant, not less. My favorite essay in the entire book is called Why Bother? It's also known as the Harper's essay, and there was a bit of a scandal surrounding this essay at the time. Jonathan Franzen was sort of a polarizing figure in the early 2000s. He would make public a lot of the internal debates that he had with himself about whether he was, say, setting a good example by going on Oprah's show or not. And there are still quite a few Jonathan Franzen detractors out there. But this essay, Why Bother, felt like it was written pretty much directly for me. I'll spoil a little bit of what the essay is about. It talked about declining readership and the very few ways that people become lifelong readers. One of those ways is to have reading modeled for you by your parents or other people in your life. And so you pick up the habit, you learn the value of it, and then you maintain it to some extent, even with insane distractions like having a phone in your pocket or TV. And one of the other ways is that there are some people, like myself, who find it very difficult to feel like themselves if they don't have some sort of active relationship with stories, characters in stories, and literature. People who read because they need to. People who read not because they're antisocial, but because they need that regular retreat within themselves to help redefine the world around them before they're ready to enter back into the world again. One of the ways I'm similar to Jonathan Franzen is that I don't really like the idea of a bunch of people deciding that they're gonna sort of force feed themselves a book all at the same time just so that they can talk about it and then socialize later. I don't like the idea of a book becoming sort of like the vegetables that your parents are making you eat. That's just not how I've ever approached books, and that's not how I've ever enjoyed them. I read because I need to, and I write because I need to. And so I don't want to give away the conclusion of that essay, Why Bother, because I do think that it would detract from your experience of reading it for the first time. But just know that I think it's the best one in the entire book. There are a few other essays in this book that are worth noting. There's one about the US Postal Service, which I found to be pretty fascinating. It's one that people comment on as being a little more boring, but I just think it's because the first 3 essays in the book are really powerful and relatively short, and the one about the post system is more like 40 or 50 pages. But all of these essays are in some way dealing with death, loneliness, what's the point of going on? And there are some really good answers in here for why you should bother going on and why it's worth being a reader in the first place. This book makes a better case for why you should be a reader and why reading is important than anything else I've ever read. None of the points that are made in here are contrived. Jonathan Franzen is very realistic about the distractions that we all face, and he's very transparent about the many things that have distracted him over the years and made him feel depressed and isolated, and the many times where he's felt like it's pointless to be doing what he's doing, which is every day choosing to spend the majority of his time reading and writing. These essays were as reassuring as they were grim. It's definitely eerie that something written in 1996 about how much of a distraction TV and digital media would be that much more relevant today. But on the whole, this book left me feeling centered in a very sober, pragmatic, and realistic way. It kind of put me back in touch with myself and helped me to reorient myself in the face of some new things that I'm dealing with in my own life. Before I wrap up, I do want to add that the main reason why Jonathan Franzen is one of my favorite writers is because he is someone who champions writers who write about people like themselves and not like themselves. He loves reading experiences, so novels mainly, where there's a huge diversity of characters, and that's what I look for in fiction personally. I love it when a writer is able to very realistically, very confidently, and very boldly imagine a bunch of different types of people and pack all that there is in modernity, or attempt to pack all that there is in modernity, into one cohesive, awesome literary experience. And for that, he's caught a lot of flack. I've caught a little bit myself. I don't really care. But I would just say that if there's one thing I'd like to see a little bit more of in the literary space, it would be people being celebrated for trying to write from perspectives other than their own. I think that's one of the most enjoyable things to do as a writer, is to really try to put yourself in someone else's shoes as the writer, not just the reader. If you've made it this far in the video and you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. I'll be making book-related content on this channel indefinitely. My name is William. I'm drinking water. I was a little sick earlier this week, so I'm still recovering from that. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.